Hello, you're listening to an excerpt from the Cynical Optimist podcast, which you can find on all your favourite podcasting apps. Make sure to also hit the subscribe button and the bell icon so you don't miss any of our videos. Enjoy this discussion. Okay, so according to GameByte, the Square Enix Avengers game has dropped 96% of its online players since launch. Square Enix also posted a $48 million operating loss. Critical reception has been mixed. Fair to say the release has been a bit of a bomb, so to speak, hasn't it?
Yes, and then some of the criticisms are things such as like the game is a bit grindy. It's a bit, wave after wave of generic enemies, which is not the bit of the Avengers films we wanted you to copy.
No, so is the third act. That's a bit of a chore, isn't it?
Yeah, and then there's been other comments about how like the models look like off-brand MCU and other things like that.
Yeah.
But so today we weren't going to spend too much time flogging that game. I think it's done that well enough itself. What we were going to do instead is discuss that if Square had been smart and had come to us for our Avengers game ideas, what would we have said to them?
Exactly.
So I was going to say, I've got some here. Shall we start off the one we discussed last week?
Yeah, so we had a guest on last week, Morgan. We spoke briefly about the Avengers game and the idea that we sort of all came up with, like a start off with the individual games, which I think would have been pretty cool.
Yeah, so in a similar way to the MCU starting with Iron Man, you'd have like Iron Man the game, and then Captain America the game.
And you could have made them all very interesting gameplay as well, that then you sort of converge into one game. Because, like, I don't know if you ever saw stuff about like the Ultimate Hulk Destruction game from like the PS2, where everything is destructible and you're just this big green ball of destruction that basically everything he touches just explodes. And that would have been a really fun sort of new or remastered game. And then you could have had like a World War II sort of Captain America game. You could have had like a God of War Thor game, or God of War style Thor game. You could have just had these sort of really interesting individual projects like Spider-Man was. And you'd have
probably made them all comparable enough that it wouldn't be too much. Like, obviously it'd all be like the same kind of overarching planning that you'd have the film, so that when you put them all together, their styles all kind of gel.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, a lot of games are made in like, you'd make them all in just a common engine, and then putting them all together wouldn't have been too bad. You just had to balance their powers against each other.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, I think that would have been really good. You could have had like, it'd have been like a spy espionage. Talking too much like James Bond from last week. For like Black Widow. Hawkeye probably would have just turned up in someone else's game like he did in the MCU. But no, I think that would have been a good idea, and it would have been, I think sometimes especially film companies or big media companies just don't think about their game strategy.
No.
In the same way that they think, like, they're like, oh, here's all this coordinated media. Like Doctor Who earlier, here's all this coordinated media, like, of comics, of audiobooks, of animated series, of all of this. But then you say, Doctor Who, can you make a video game? And they're just like, no. They just don't know what to do about it.
Yeah.
And it's not that games are that, it's not that difficult to think of like a fun game, I hope. Obviously, games take a lot more budget. Well, they can take a lot more budget depending on obviously the scale of the game.
Yeah, I mean they could be simple.
Yeah, I think the trick would be with like an an MCU in game form.
Yeah,
is that not all of them were like sprawling 40-hour stories?
Yeah,
because you'd need one. I think you'd need one or two that were like short, fun puzzle, almost like more puzzle games, and but just puzzle games in the respect that like Portal is, where it's still like taking place in 3D environments and stuff, and that is what would get like people into it. Like you have like your gateway ones.
Yeah, well, I like sort of along those lines. I had an idea of having something sort of akin to Lego Avengers, but sort of with the sort of the story and the graphics of like an original story and original graphics and everything like that, but like kind of reliantly.
So kind of like Star Wars Republic Heroes.
Yeah, kind of. But I'm thinking more like it's reliant on co-op. So like we'll start a new series called A Way Out soon on the Holoprojectors arcade channel. Nice plug. Where it's entirely dependent on co-op. There's entire sort of levels where you have to kind of do the old hang on to each other's back and climb up the wall kind of thing. Without each other, you can't progress the story. I think that would have been cool. I mean, it's complicated, but like if you're doing this big, like sort of Avengers game, that's going to be like the benchmark for the franchise kind of thing. Like, why not spend a bit longer on it? And I know Square Enix spent seemingly like 50 years on this game, but like I think it'd be really cool if you have something like that, but every Avenger has like a different skill set which you need. And you know, like in the Lego games, you could sort of you press triangle or whatever it is on Xbox, and you merge to like a different character.
Yeah.
Maybe when you want to play it on your own, you can do something like that, and all the other Avengers are kind of following you with you, and you can just kind of morph to another Avenger when you need that power. Rather than, it seems like in the game as it currently stands, it's kind of very much you play as this character, then you play as this character, then you play as this character. I think it'd be cool to sort of...
And the story is just slowly bring them all together. Like, the story doesn't have to be massive in scale either.
No.
Like, not until the third act. Because if you think about it, one of the challenges in the first Avengers film was when, obviously, the airship gets attacked.
Yes.
And that would have been when you have two people working in tandem. You'd have one person, like, going into the engine as Iron Man, and the other person fighting off enemies and pulling the lever as Captain America.
Yeah, that'd be.
And then the gameplay would cut down to like Thor and Black Widow, and like Black Widow would be like escaping the Hulk, and Thor would be trying to like get there to like intervene.
Yeah,
there is ways to do it.
Yeah, definitely. And I don't know, maybe like couch co-op, split screen as well. Just because I think like doing that as an online thing would bring up all sorts of problems, sort of tagging in and out. It's what works well about Lego, is that you can, if another player isn't playing, the other character just kind of follows you around. Whereas if you've obviously got two players playing and someone else tags in, they just pick up one of those characters. So I think like that could be quite a cool way of doing things. Basically just Lego Avengers is what I'm pitching.
So what your pitch, what our first pitch is just more of what we've already seen.
Basically,
but just with better graphics and not Lego.
Yeah, exactly. And well, you mentioned there about sort of the events of the first Avengers movie. Why not revive film tie-in games? One that I think would lend itself quite well to an Avengers game as well is an Infinity War tie-in game where you play as Thanos obtaining the Infinity Stones, because then you've kind of got that ever-increasing level of skills and power and things that you can use. You start off just sort of bare fists and you kind of get to the end of the game. I think that would be a cool tie-in game.
And that has like a progressing character.
Yeah, that's what I mean, yeah.
Doesn't it? Because with each stone you get more abilities.
Yeah, exactly. And you can sort of have like a sort of skill tree that you can expand and use bits of each stone. You could even play out the decimation of Xandar, which is a thing you didn't see in the movie. I used to love film tie-in games which did that, which sort of expanded on the plots of some of their films slightly.
Yeah.
That's a kind of dead genre we should actually talk about at some point, because it's kind of...
Well, the thing is, a lot of those kind of games have just become like mobile titles, but they've just been reduced on like a shoestring budget instead.
Yeah.
So now it's no longer like a proper tie-in game. It's just like, this is a tie-in to Despicable Me 4. It's just Tetris of minions. But kind of going down that sort of route, what you were saying obviously about having the characters and switching them around and stuff, what I think would be interesting is like an Avengers top-down RPG.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, like, not so much Pokemon, but, you know, other like almost like Final Fantasy-ish. And you kind of walking around the overworld, and you'd start with just one person, and you'd be like recruiting the other heroes throughout the story, and then it'd be like very EXP based, so that would like power up each character in turn, and you could swap out your party members.
Yeah.
With like proper turn-based combat as well. So it'd be rather cartoony in style. It'd definitely be more like in the close to comic aesthetic than the film aesthetic.
Yeah.
But it'd be like a really solid character experience. And also RPGs, just like comics, are known for having absolutely nuts storylines. So it wouldn't be out of place for an Avengers game.
Yeah.
I mean, then you could still have like the individual party members having abilities.
Yeah.
Like, again, like the Lego, almost like certain buttons that only certain characters can do. Like maybe a pad, and then on the pad, obviously, Iron Man can like fly up and go to an area that only he can access, kind of thing. But I was thinking back as to like, what would be actually different for doing these kind of games? And like, I think there would be an audience for like a turn-based Avengers RPG.
Yeah.
Like, from like the people I've seen talking on like Twitter and stuff about like the actual Avengers game, like that's definitely got a fan base to it still, I think.
Definitely.
And also, if you made like the story quite like good and fan servicey, and you made like all the moves like references to stuff from the comics, like it might be like too niche to like the hardcore fans, but I reckon a lot of people would get on board.
Yeah, definitely. That'd be really fun. I think maybe one of the problems with the game as it currently runs as well is that I've heard the multiplayer isn't like as ingrained as you might think.
Yeah, isn't it kind of like horde battles or whatever? Or just
yeah, I think there's like side missions and stuff that you can sort of just drop in and drop out on multiplayer. Whereas I think like the original pitch was this big sort of collective.
It was like grab your friends and be the Avengers.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's not really the game they delivered in the end.
Yeah, they were more. They wanted to get their players in and then just have it be like a service game, like which had like more, drip feed of content, and the base game didn't really change, but you came back and it had more installments. And I guess that kind of fits a model like comic books where the new issue is out, i.e. the new mission. Let's go play it. But when like the multiplayer isn't front and center, it kind of, and also it needs to be like a fun multiplayer experience, because like, I don't know, compare it to something like Sea of Thieves, where it's completely multiplayer, but you're just like a pirate crew together, and that's something where you can kind of create your own fun as well. And I think from what I've seen, there isn't that kind of aspect to the Marvel game, because obviously it needs to follow some kind of plot. There's less ability for you and your friends just to doss around, like there is in like GTA Online. So
I think maybe another thing they maybe didn't get quite right was they riffed very much on the sort of those original 6 movie Avengers. 6? I can't remember.
Plus Kamala Khan, which obviously is a good addition.
Yeah, Miss Marvel's a cool addition, and that's like a very different gameplay as well. But like, why not sort of more sort of stranger roster of characters, like Quicksilver with a sort of unique super speed a bit like gameplay, Ant-Man with the ability to shift size, Falcon with flight, War Machine where it's just like this unlimited cargo of weapons.
Have you heard of Dragon Ball Xenoverse?
No.
So Dragon Ball Xenoverse is it's one of those create your own character games. So you choose your race as like Saiyan or Namek or Frieza or Ace but what it is you are working for something called the Time Patrol, and it's basically other time-based villains are going back to pre-established events and like changing things so that the heroes lose.
Right, okay. And
you have to go into these cracks in time and turn up at the same time and then help the heroes still win against like these changed odds.
Okay.
But also through the game you can play as like the main, like all the roster of characters, and they'll like be your like mentors and like stuff like that. It's very obviously incredibly non-canon. Like my god. So it's just like, okay, here is 2 different versions of this character from 2 different canons from Dragon Ball interact. It's very fan service.
Yeah.
But obviously this is not beyond the realm of what Marvel could do with Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
And something that you could do it even within, like, the Marvel films as they exist, is have somebody drop, like, one of the future villains, like, drop the Mandarin into the original Iron Man to team up with Jeff Bridges. And what it always did was it introduced each mission with basically the hero getting there, like, basically getting killed. And they were just all watching from, like, this future dimension and being like, that's not good. You know, they're distorting the timeline and we've got to go fix it.
Right, yeah.
But through it, obviously, you're interacting with all the characters. You've got all that fan service moment. You've got that bit which a lot of players like, which is I'm playing as my own hero character.
Yeah.
And then you can kind of build it from there, and you could have it go through the whole MCU. And then they have things called parallel quests, which is just basically fan servicey scenarios where it is just like a self-contained mission. And that as well did have like co-op, so you could do like stuff together online and stuff like that.
Yeah, that sounds wicked.
So, I mean, the game itself is a bit of a button masher
in
terms of Xenoverse gameplay, but that's just because Dragon Ball is a fighting game.
Yeah.
So, whilst it does have like a RPG system and you get like experience and you get like moves you can swap out and abilities, you are basically going in and punching the bad guy really hard in the face. But I did think, I was trying to think of what would make, like, if I was just given like the reins to Avengers, what kind of game do I think would be fun? I was like, actually, I did play I'd complained that it was a button masher, but I played all of Xenoverse 1.
Yeah, that sounds fun.
And like having Doctor Strange like be like the lead in it and be like, oh no, this is a distortion in time. We need to go and like sort it, basically. We need to keep sanctity of the timeline.
Yeah.
Would tie in obviously to the chat between Bruce Banner and
Tilda Swinton.
Tilda Swinton, damn it.
Yeah, no, that sounds really cool. What we're saying is we've got many better ideas than Square Enix.
Yeah, unfortunately, it is what happens when you see your franchise is just like a cash in rather than.
I think the problem was as well is that they just they led with the design of the original 6 as well was just so off-putting because they just looked like they put them sort of too similar to the Avengers movie characters, but just not different enough. So, yeah.
Like that is the one consistent critique I've seen in a lot of the reviews is how they just look like off-brand movie Avengers.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of the costume switches and stuff aren't very good as well, like compared to like Spider-Man. Like I think if for single hero games, like the best ones are probably Spider-Man and Batman Arkham.
Yeah, definitely.
And obviously those are very based around their individual characters. Obviously it is a bit more difficult when you've got like the big group team up because you couldn't you could, to be fair, you could still do like a stealth thing, but each of you are a different Avenger kind of. Yeah. And you're like sneaking up on a facility, like you got Iron Man like approaching from the sky, the others all like sneaking in on the ground. Yeah, it's just very disappointing. Yeah, it could have been something incredible. But it just wasn't, and maybe that's our own fault for holding too much expectation these days. Yeah, so we're all spoiled. That's the problem. Too optimist, not enough cynical. Exactly. And then the only other thing I wrote down was like, do you know what a Metroidvania is? No. So a Metroidvania is just a type of game, obviously popularised by Metroid and Castlevania, where you're just in a big map which opens up with the more abilities you find elsewhere in the map. Right. It's a 2D platformer, but like for Metroid, because Samus Aran obviously is Samus is in a robotic suit. Yeah. So obviously that compares to Iron Man. Is like she finds her missiles and then that opens up like certain doors, and then finds like the ice beam that opens up certain areas. And it's like natural expansion of the map because you can't go to these areas without it. I'm not sure if that would work for like full Avengers unless you had like a Paper Mario system where you can just be swapping out Avengers on the fly to like clear certain gaps.
Well, that's what I meant about the sort of the Lego-ish sort of system where you've kind of, they're all there, but you can kind of like press triangle and it like shifts to a different Avenger, and that Avenger has a certain like in the old Lego games, in the Star Wars ones, you had to switch to someone with the Force to do certain things, and then a droid for opening certain doors. It's that kind of thing where it feels like it's worth playing as all the characters as well, rather than, from what I heard, you can sort of just go in and like mash as the Hulk in the Avengers game online, and you don't really feel the need to swap out to other characters, kind of thing. Yeah. The last thing I wrote was just, why did it need to? Again, this is down to sort of having it too similar to just about too similar to the original movies. In that it didn't have to deal with any of the rights issues that the movies had to in the early days. Like, why not just have this big universe that's filled with, it's got the Fantastic Four, the X-Men, Spider-Man's knocking around. Why not just have that as like this massive sort of infinite roster of characters, rather than just show us the 6 we've seen before?
Well, that's the thing. Phil, in the last week, I've been looking back at old series I've done. One of the first Let's Plays I ever did was with Vicky, and it was Marvel Lego Superheroes. And that just was like, it was almost prior to everyone getting all up about their rights and stuff, as Marvel films started to take off, and I think everyone started to try and work out which exact heroes they had the rights to be protective of. But like, the story just goes from like, okay, it was just New York, and it was like, okay, we're playing as these heroes over here, but now we're over at the X-Men Academy over here, and now we're at the Fantastic Four over here.
Yeah, wicked.
We're gradually bringing everyone together over here. The final boss is just Galactus attacking the Avengers airship, and you switch between not only the heroes but the villains. It's a very light-hearted plot, but it's all you really needed.
Yeah, for sure.
Hire us to make your stuff better.
Or just hire Lego, because that's where we keep ending up.
Yeah, or just make more Lego Marvel games. Like, those are all pretty fun. Until they just decided they couldn't be bothered with original stories anymore. And now I think the most recent Lego Avengers is just the films, isn't it?
Yeah. Didn't play it.
Well, I'm less interested in playing that. Like, I think I preferred the original story of the Marvel one, because it was like embracing the Lego-ness of it as well.
Yeah, the silliness.
Whereas obviously if they're following just the plot of the film, they'll just dot along in the plot of the film, you know what's going to happen.
Yeah.